powerful lens. It's really, in a sense, about seeing the future in the present, like getting that eagle vision. You know, an eagle can see like a rabbit or a mouse in the field, like 2 miles away, 2 kilometers away. How do we develop that vision of the future? Emily Greenbaum once said, the future will be influenced by trends that are now existent and observable. That means that everything you need to know about the future, you can know. There's no proprietary information really anymore. Everything you need to know, you can know. So it's really about saying, let's get out there and find out as much as we can about all of these new trends, and then figure out how we can use them. You know, back in 1983, who would have known that this thing was going to be so revolutionary? Right? This was 1983. This was 2003. So, you know, in 20 years, it changed the world. By 2007, we had this thing in our hands that's a supercomputer from the 1980s. It can do, you know, things that we never envisaged were even possible. What do we do with this thing? A lot of people just use it to look at pictures of cats, you know, and post things on Facebook. But of course, we think about this kind of smartphone addiction that's really changed everyone's lives. But it was about understanding where things were going. And so, right here in China, the CEO of BYD, Wang Changfu, understood that if everyone was going to have a smartphone, then every single smartphone would require a rechargeable battery. So he said, why don't we become the premium supplier of rechargeable batteries to the smartphone industry? Well, here in China, I think, 850 million people already have a smartphone or more. And so within 10 years, he became one of the richest men in China. And now, of course, everybody else is joining that whole opportunity. But what I love about him is he then said, what's the next opportunity? What's the next wave? And by 2002, you could already see with the success of the Prius, Toyota, that the next wave was going to be electric cars. So he said, why don't we become the premium supplier of rechargeable batteries to the electric car industry? And in 2008, he went one step further and said, let's just make our own car. And now BYD is the world's largest manufacturer of electric vehicles. Not just cars, but buses and other things. So between 2008 and 2016, that's 8 years, BYD has become the world's largest producer of electric vehicles. And now again, everyone else is racing after that same opportunity. I had an interesting conversation with somebody from Philips over in Holland back in 1993. He said to me, I don't believe in convergence. I think if you put all of those kind of products together, you're going to create a kind of Frankenstein monster. You know, jack of all trades, master of none. It won't be a very good computer, it won't be a very good camera, it won't be a very good music player, a very good phone, or any of that stuff. Well, how wrong could you be? You know? And so the moral of this story is we've got to make sure we don't miss the future. And so today we talk about convergence, but it's a different kind of convergence. It's a convergence of these kinds of technologies: social, mobile, analytics, cloud, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics. All of that is coming together, and we've got to make sure we don't miss that future. Larry Page said lots of companies don't succeed over time. What do they fundamentally do wrong? They usually miss the future. That's what happened in the United States to Blockbuster. Blockbuster and Netflix were both distributing DVDs. And then along came this amazing, revolutionary technology of streaming media, and that changed everything. So Netflix was quite an interesting strategy. They said, we're going to put on the brakes with DVDs while stepping on the gas in terms of streaming. And they were able to actually force a lot of their customer base to move over to their streaming offerings, and now they're one of the world's largest players in that particular market. On the other hand, Blockbuster is dead. I'm told by reliable sources that in fact, the last video they ever rented out was called "This Is the End," which was kind of really appropriate. Why did Steve Jobs develop the iPhone? Is it because he saw some great opportunity? No, he saw a great threat. At the time, Apple's main profit engine was the iPod. Like 60% of their profits were coming out of the iPod. But he said, you know what? It's not going to take long for the phone companies to do what we're doing with the iPod, downloading music to the device, and you can listen to it as you can on the iPod. He said, no one's going to want two devices in their pockets. They're going to want one. So we have to very quickly go beyond the iPod and think about developing our own phone. And they were able to do something that was revolutionary. The ultimate digital device, your life in your pocket. So innovators are wave riders. Innovators welcome change rather than trying to resist it. They know how to make change work for them rather than against them. And they've developed skills that enable them to turn discontinuity into opportunity. So the question for you today is, are you up there riding these waves, these giant tsunamis of change, or are you laying on the beach waiting for the tsunami to come up and hit you? Tsunamis are very destructive, and I would argue that industry tsunamis are very destructive. The tsunami for Kodak was digital photography. The tsunami for the music industry was these kinds of services. The tsunami for Nokia and BlackBerry was the iPhone. The tsunami for iPhone is Android, now on 85, 90% of all mobile devices. The tsunami for the taxi industry is ride-sharing. The tsunami for the hotel industry is Airbnb and Tujia and those services. The question is, what will be the tsunami in your industry? In most cases, it's going to come from digital disruption of some kind. So are you going to ride that wave, or are you going to be washed away by it? That's the choice you have. I always say every company should regularly ask itself, what will be the tsunami in our industry? How can we make sure we ride that wave instead of being washed away? So in order to see the future, we've got to spend less time looking inward at what we currently do and backward at what we always did, and spend more time looking outward at what's changing in the world and forward at the evolution of our industry. We've got to understand how we can use and harness all of these trends. You know, augmented reality, there's a tech trend. Look at how Pokemon Go used that particular trend to create a very successful new game that actually managed to create 50 million users in just 19 days. You have a lot of tech trends in retail, things like beacons, where, you know, we can use those beacons to help figure out where people can go and get offers and so on. Beacons will directly influence over $4 billion in U.S. retail sales this year alone, and climb to 10 times more next year. Right here in China, during the 2015 Chinese New Year, Chow Tai Fook's use of iBeacon brought in $11 million in revenue. We have biometrics. The global biometrics market is going to rise to $15 billion this year. We have mobile e-commerce. In China, 50% of all e-commerce sales in 2015 took place via mobile devices. By 2019, China's mobile sales will account for 71% of all e-commerce. Social commerce. In the U.S., it's kind of, you know, you go to these Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and say, I like that. Well, if you like it, now you can buy it. Well, that, of course, is happening right here in China, too. Artificial intelligence. China Merchants Bank already has an ATM where you can go up and use facial recognition rather than a PIN code. That was quite an amazing thing. And now they have an app on your smartphone where you can do exactly the same thing. Just look into your phone, it recognizes your face, and you can make your transactions. We're using facial recognition now for security ID to get into certain places. Alibaba is already introducing it. This company in China is a startup, is recently valued at $1 billion because of its facial recognition technology. Baidu is, of course, using artificial intelligence for voice recognition, facial recognition, these kind of smart digital assistants, and also self-driving cars. Talking of which, if you think about robotics, robotics is now, you know, we know, changing manufacturing, changing logistics, changing last mile delivery. Just last week, I was in Xi'an. They had their first deliveries via drone from JD.com. But also we see now actual robots. You know, there's a robot in Pizza Hut here in Asia that comes up to your table, tells you about the menu, chats with you, tells you some jokes, enables you to make your choices, and then when you're finished, you can do the payment with digital payment with the robot. Driverless transportation, we've seen cars, we've seen trucks, industrial vehicles, we've seen self-driving courier truck vans and taxis, buses, all of these various kinds of autonomous transportation. Of course, for many years we've had these autonomous drones up in the air. And I think what's interesting is Rolls-Royce said to themselves, we also make engines not just for aviation, but also for marine ships. So they came with an idea now of an autonomous ship, which basically has no crew living quarters, there's no bridge for the captain, everything is run autonomously, which of course gives you much more space for the containers. The Internet of Things, of course, going to change everything. All these billions of devices with trillions of sensors. So we talk about the Internet of Traffic. We've heard already about the industrial Internet, smart factories full of sensors with just like 6 or 7 people and an iPad running the entire place. Smart buildings, smart homes, smart communities, smart cities, even smart roads. This is a road that's actually using a lot of solar panels that gathers energy in the daytime, and then they can use that to light up at night and send you messages about the driving conditions, and also to recharge your electric vehicle. So you've got to ask, how much is your industry going to change over the next decade? Are you going to be ready? Which of those waves are you riding in order to push your company forward into the future? Steve Jobs once said, these waves, you can see them way before they happen, and you just have to choose wisely which ones you're going to surf. The third